You are listening to the Superfreakmedia Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, please be sure to show your support and follow us on our other social media platforms. Check out the links listed in the description of this episode to find out more. Thank you.
I really love that she was given this really high station. I reckon Leviathan was like, I saw what you did for some good dick, and I appreciate that. But I also saw how you got f***ed over by the good dick. So how about you come work for me? You can put people in a fabulous wardrobe, and my dick monsters will turn them into angels/demons.
That is the intro soundbite right there.
Hello and welcome back to the They're Queer podcast, the podcast where two homos called Liam take a deep dive into the world of horror, play with things that they shouldn't play with, and get whipped and chained into a pleasurable yet sadomasochistic experience. Yeah.
We say welcome back because, we might have had a month off.
I'm back!
Life got in the way and we got very busy. So, yes, I know that you've all missed us.
Obviously.
Well, I hope you have anyway.
I mean, my inbox has just been flooded with messages just of sad people, so...
Oh, yeah, I've had them queuing from the flat. Do you know when there was that giant queue for the Queen when she died? It was that in Derby. It was going all around the...
Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby just come on in whenever they wanted to?
No, because there's no young boys here.
Allegedly. Incredible. But yes.
We'll be looking at special boxes today. I'm trying to find a tenuous
segue. Yeah.
And we will be looking at the Hellraiser franchise as a whole. There are a few films that we won't really discuss or go into, purely because this is one of those series where it has quite a lot of entries, but little substance to it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be an interesting episode because I know you've wanted to do this series for a while, and I know that you really love it. And I know, of course, Kirsty's one of your favourite women of horror. Yeah, but I think it's a controversial one. I think it's. I don't know. I think it's a weird film series. But there's promise, I think.
There is, especially with the latest entry.
For sure.
I love this series a lot because Clive Barker is one of my personal heroes, purely as from a writing point of view. Well, I'll go into a little bit more about that later, about some things we don't share, or I don't know. But anyway, I'll go into any of that. But yeah, Clive Barker remains one of my personal heroes. I've got a colleague at work, and we both talk a lot about Hellraiser and Clive Barker in general because they're also a huge fan. This is one of those series where, like we've spoken about traditionally in the podcast, is where it was a trip to Blockbuster that got me into got me into it, because Pinhead is always, or the Hell Priest, or whatever you want to call him, is always front and central on the covers. And it was actually the fourth film, I want to say. It's either the fourth or the third film where it's like green and red lighting.
Yes, I was going to say, it's number 4. I recognise that image. That used to scare me a lot as a child.
Yeah, so it's, I watched the fourth one before any of the others, and I thought, oh, this is weird. So then went back and found the others. I think when I first watched them, the second one was the one that blew me away more than the others. But since then, the first two have become solidified as probably two of my favourite horror films of all time. Just crazy, beautiful, weird genius, I think. Something that at the time was kind of unheard of in horror. We had this was released at the peak of the 80s slasher craze, and Clive Barker wrote and directed the first movie, and was kind of like, I don't want to do the formulaic thing of casting 12 unknown actors, attractive teenagers to get bumped off. He was like, I want to hire quote unquote real actors. And
thespians.
Yes.
Get the thespians involved. I mean, I'll say I kind of got into Hellraiser again. It was really late. It was actually in uni. Like, it was always one of those franchises that I knew about, but I kind of watched the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I watched the Halloweens, Friday the 13th, and Hellraiser was always one that I never really watched. And then one of my lecturers actually at uni is quite a close friend, or has collaborated with Clive Barker in the past. He actually did the the kind of new cut of Nightbreed, where they
wait. I know about this. They were the ones. They were the
Cabal
person
cut.
who found. Yeah, they found all that lost footage.
Yeah, so
that was your lecturer.
It was my lecturer Russell. God,
I fucking love Nightbreed so much.
Yeah, that was pretty special. I mean, we got to. This is going to be just name drop city at the moment, but we went to Keswick Film Festival, which John Hurt was a patron of while he was still alive, and we got to watch the Cabal cut with John Hurt it was one of the first screenings in the UK, and it was absolutely ace. I don't know. I do think Clive Barker's work and worlds is its own thing, which I think is very unique and great. But I actually watched Hellraiser for the first time because Russell had this connection to Clive. He then was able to get Doug Bradley to come in to uni, and I absolutely hate myself for the fact that I was really ill that day.
I can't go out. I'm sick.
And was not able to go in, and I can remember I got the box set because I wanted to get the box set signed and stuff, and I wanted to watch it, and I only ever watched the first film, and then, like I said, I missed out on the meeting. It was a pretty big deal. Like, I didn't actually realise how many people absolutely love Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I've got to respect that. I do think it's rather iconic.
I'm not saying that Clive Barker is the reason why it's so successful, because there were a lot more hands that crafted the world of Hellraiser, sorry. But just Clive's body of work is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm currently reading for all those who don't know, Hellraiser, the original film, was based on a short novella by Clive Barker called The Hellbound Heart. In 2015, he released a sequel to it called The Scarlet Gospels, of which his longtime character that he's used in various work, Harry D'Amour, gets to go head to head against Pinhead, or the Hell Priest, as Clive prefers him to be referred to. And it's one of those books where it's the last book of the year that I'm reading. I'm really taking my time with it. I've hit my Goodread goals of 52 books, so 1 week a year.
Incredible. I know that was the thing you wanted to do this year. So well done.
So now I've done that. This is the book that I'm going to finish on. This will be the 53rd book, and I'm taking my time with it. But I'm also taking my time with it because it's a hard read.
Fair enough.
It's some bits have been a bit of a chore, but some bits have been great. But yeah, so this world has been expanded on many times. It's been expanded on through novels, through comics, various comic iterations, actually. As we said before, there's been sequels galore of wavering quality, shall we say.
I think that's being very polite, but yes.
I think the one constant, I feel like the reason why these films ended up being so successful, and I don't mean to say it is all on one person, but the reason why it continued is I believe that Doug Bradley's performance as Pinhead goes down as one of the greats. Like everyone thinks of, Robert Englund as Freddy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, to some extent, if I think of Jason, I automatically think of Kane Hodder before I think of anyone else. I think that's because he was my favourite Jason. But for me, Doug Bradley is probably the one, and it's a mixture of his incredible personification of the character, but his line delivery is like no other.
You solved the box. We came. Now you must come with us. Taste our pleasures. Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
Yeah, it's rather haunting, isn't it, when Pinhead speaks? Yeah, I do think the success, and at least the loyalty of fans, is heavily down to Doug Bradley, because even the other Cenobites, there's been a bit of a shuffle round, hasn't there? Like with who's playing who. We still have the iconic kind of figures, but I don't know. Like you said, he's been front and center from the start, really, hasn't he? And it's because of that striking image. I'm not familiar at all with the literature behind the films, and I will obviously be 100% honest. I'm not really familiar with the film series. I've only really watched up to 3, and then of course the new reimagining that we got this year. So the literature that kind of came before this, I know this was obviously something that was referenced quite a bit when we got the recasting of Pinhead in the new film. Is there a leap between the book and the film in terms of how Pinhead is depicted, or do you think it's quite accurate?
Yeah, and yes and no in some ways. So in the book, they have like bejeweled pins in the head. So each nail or pin has like a bejeweled, like has a little jewel at the end of it. Which the more recent one, you kind of see that they look like little pearls at the end of it. But they are described as being quite androgynous beings, where they're of an indeterminate gender, but also like that because they present feminine, but there's also like a masculine quality to them. So whereas Doug Bradley's depiction is, I don't think you could read them as anything other than male. But what I liked about it is the designs that were in the film were actually Clive Barker described them. So he got the design like inspiration from S&M clubs in New York and Amsterdam. And he said he was influenced by like the punk movement, by Catholicism, because Pinhead's gang are the Order of the Gash. What? Whichever gash you want to. I suppose that's the fun part about that. But they're also he's like, so Pinhead. Clive Barker hates that term that fans affectionately ended up coming up with, but Clive Barker always wanted him to be the Hell Priest and saw them as this like order of like fucked up satanic order. But then Jane Wildgoose, who was the costume designer, had a big integral part of how they look, because Clive turned around and was like, I'm just going to tell you, I want them to look like repulsive glamour. And repulsive glamour is so spot on for them. But it's but looking at them, you like, I always love like the fucking dude bros who are like, oh, I love the Hellraiser franchise. And then when Jamie was cast as like the new Hell Priest, and they were all just like, oh, fucking woke agenda strikes again. And it's like, this series, regardless of like the future iterations, it was birthed of a queer creator. Yeah, everything about it is completely and utterly cool. Like, all of Clive's work, I will argue, is queer, especially Nightbreed, but that will hopefully be a future episode. But like the whole idea of sexual liberation, searching for that something that
is forbidden,
seems unattainable. I
think that I've always found something really hauntingly beautiful about these films. I will say there's something about these films that really gets under my skin, like no other type of film. It's like I don't know. I mean, I do think makeup effects and the gore and kind of the visceral images that they conjure up in these movies is very much at the forefront as well. Like, it is a roller coaster ride of just like wincing moments. There's always, it is kind of done with this lens of like, oh, it shouldn't look beautiful, but it does. And I mean, I suppose that's kind of the whole concept, isn't it? But I don't know why. I've seen like obviously the likes of Evil Dead, and I've seen other films from like the 80s and 90s where they had gore effects, but there's just something really like, I don't know how to describe it other than like chunky, if that makes sense. There's something like chunky and gross about these movies.
So when I wrote Sticks and Stones, it was this movie and Brain Dead that were when I was trying to think of like depictions and descriptions of body horror. It was these that informed it, because I was like, they're the two films where I'm always like,
yeah,
absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, because it's like I'll see like Saw, or like the Saw films these days and stuff, and like they're gross, and you do have a similar sort of like edge to them like these. Like obviously you've got like the Angel Trap, for example. That seems like something that could be in a Hellraiser movie, but it's just not got that like I don't know, just uncomfortable factor about it that these films have. Which
the makeup effects in the first film, I mean, and the second, still blow me away to this day. The bit where Frank returns from the grave, and you see that like beautiful, like it goes like, it's a lengthy sequence, but like the whole sequence of like all the like gore going back onto the skeleton and then the bits, it's just how drippy they
there's just so much goo,
and they're just like so drippy, and then like they leave like because
there's residue everywhere.
There is.
The whole hallway smells like cum,
especially when they're like wiping their fingers on each other's mouths, and it's just
I mean that's the whole thing.
You said something I want to pick on. You said hauntingly beautiful, and that's how I'd probably describe the first one, because I think the first movie, as much as it's like a horror film, it's a really f***ed up love story. Like at the centre of it, it's the amazing Claire Higgins as Julia.
I mean, we'd need a whole section about her.
If there's anyone in the world who has like a free card to say fuck it, Claire Higgins deserves it. She's just incredible. I remember, so the first time I saw Claire Higgins in anything was The Worst Witch.
Yeah.
You still have run The Worst Witch, and then I believe she was in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But yeah,
she's in Ready Player One as well, which I didn't realise. Yeah. She's one of the random people in the caravans.
She's just such an incredible performance, especially as Julia, because there's that like quiet sinisterness to her. Unlike like all the slasher films that were coming out at the time, the antagonist was somebody who was just killing almost for fun. Yeah. Whereas she wasn't brutalizing these people for anything but love. And I mean, to be fair, Frank, how could you not? Oh god, he's so fine. That's another thing that these films do well: casting attractive men.
Hot men. Hot men.
Frank.
We'll get onto Frank very soon, I promise. We'll get under Frank very soon. Yeah. I obviously we said this was kind of when it came out, it was at the golden age of slashers, but it was also, I think, where slashers were starting to wane off and people were getting tired. There is a part of me that does classify this first one, maybe especially, as a slasher to some degree, and I do think it is through Julia. But like you said, it was different in the fact that, it was a female antagonist, and the motivations for it weren't sexual frustration or mummy issues or, I don't know, some supernatural kind of thing revenge that was going on with herself. Revenge. Yeah, exactly. It was, that she was just in love, and it was forbidden love, and then the whole thing is about forbidden. I mean, it's very, very clever. Like, there's layers of like nuance and stuff through, especially that first film. I do have thoughts on the second, and from what I've seen of the third, and then of course, I can't speak for the latter films. I've seen like a montage on YouTube of like the best moments of kind of each one, but I don't know. I think the first one is maybe where it's at for me story wise, because I think it does stand up like so strong, and I think it's unique as well that we had not only a queer creator obviously behind it, but also the person who conceptualized the whole thing actually then going on to direct it. I think it's quite unique. It was Clive's directorial debut. Before had done work on stage, like their first
foray into film. What's really funny about it, though, is Roger Ebert hated it, and he said about Clive Barker, it's like, I have seen the future of implausible plotting, and his name is Clive Barker. This is a movie without wit, style, or reason. Who goes to see movies like this? Like, shut up, you pretentious prick. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. What does he know?
I can't, because I think, to be fair, I think apart from the final shot, I think this is a great story. I don't like the bit where that like random skeleton dragon comes and is like, like,
I mean, that's just a meme, isn't it? Now
like, that's weird.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Like, that's, and it doesn't kind of go anywhere.
I don't know. I know that you do have a love for these films, but do you not kind of feel like they're all a little bit like that? Like, especially, I don't know if it's just the editing or if it is maybe. This is where I'm interested to see if there's a lot of stuff that's answered in the literature as opposed to the films, because I feel like there's gaps.
The literature, like, it's a novella. It's very, very short. I believe it's only 97 pages. Let me just confirm that.
That's kind of insane, though, isn't it? To think that something so short could birth like an entire franchise and horror icon.
He's done it before. Like the Candyman series comes out of a Clive Barker short of The Forbidden and his Books of Blood.
I do like Candyman.
Oh yeah, I love. To be honest, most things that's been adapted from his work, I really enjoy.
Did you prefer, because I felt the transition between the first film and the second film was very akin to me to the Evil Dead films. Like, obviously it was very apparent Evil Dead was done like on a budget, a shoestring budget. Then Evil Dead 2, they got a budget. So they essentially told a very similar story. And I do think Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 does, I mean, it came out a year later. It did very much tread a lot of familiar territory. It expanded upon the universe, obviously, a lot, because we got the introduction of like the Leviathan and the labyrinth and everything, which was great.
And that great sound effect that the Doctor makes.
Insert sound effect here. Yeah, the second one was different.
It was. I mean, part of it, like, there's bits of the second one that I can't. I hate when you find out that they were all human and.
Yeah, that was just
like. I to this day, I'm like, I kind of like it and I kind of don't, because when you realise like the Chatterer was a child, like that's so f***ed up, and or like. Is good, especially when you realise that they can't remember that they were human. They've thought that they've always been these like eternal beings.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea, but I think it's with anything. It's the same. It's why the killers wear masks in those slasher films. Like once you reveal the humanity, it kind of takes the scariness away a little bit.
Yeah, and I think because the first film, Clive was heavily involved. Definitely feel like you can tell with that, because it does feel like this self-contained world, self-contained story. It doesn't feel like it's like, to me it felt like it wouldn't need expanding on if you just watch the first film, because you're like, to be fair, it explains a lot and not like a great deal of time. And I really love that the most time that we do spend is with Julia. Like, we spend more time with Julia than we do Kirsty or Frank, or with the Cenobites themselves. I really do believe that the first two stories, the franchise star should have been Julia. I love the idea of her still being around and still coming back. That would be great. I was really hoping we'd get like a Claire Higgins cameo in the latest one, because I think that would have. I would have loved everything about that.
There is no reason why I don't think she couldn't have been the lady who worked for the main guy, like, sneaking out of the box and stuff. Yeah. I think that would have been a similar kind of vibe for her. I think it would have been interesting to have had like the antagonist at the forefront as opposed to I do like Kirsty. I do.
I like Kirsty because she's smart. That's why I like Kirsty. She's so smart, and I feel like all the actions that she takes in these films are
you would in that moment.
You would in that moment.
Yeah.
She seems such a natural character. She doesn't seem like she's adhering to any sort of stock or archetype. Everything's believable with her, and I always feel like she's so, bless her, she's so like pure of heart, because she does. We all know, without even if we didn't see her like noshing off a skin monster, like you can tell that Julia's like a pure, cold-hearted bitch.
Bicth, in that order.
Yeah.
And even with that, Kirsty still tries with her. At least she's still she's still like, oh, I suppose I'll say hello. You know, I'm really trying. Yeah.
I mean, do those characters, do they feature in the book then?
So,
or is the Hellraiser first film just a story that features in that universe?
So, Julia and Kirsty and Frank, but so it's Frank and Rory are in it. But yeah, they all appear in it. Kirsty's still like the main bit, and it does it features it's near enough like the same story, but very condensed. Like it doesn't go much into it. The reason why Frank comes back, you find out, is it's blood and semen that Frank had left on the floor. So when Frank comes back,
he literally comes back.
Yeah. So the reason why Frank's back is because the cut that he gets ends up landing on the floor, a spot where a spot of dried Frank's semen is from his affair with Julia, and that's why he comes back. And I feel like that was alluded to, but I feel like it was only alluded to when it was just that clear, whitish clear puddle that he comes back in. That was very seminal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like the thing is, though, I feel like the Hellbound Heart, the book, is a lot more sexual than any of the entries into this. I mean, sex does play a huge part in it, especially like because Frank in the first film is this like Lothario boy, wants to experience the biggest pleasures in the world, and that's what gets him over, because somebody's like, oh, this box will give you the best orgasm of your life, and he's like, yeah, I want that. His brother's wife and all that, you know. And then Julia and Frank have like a very,
I just feel like surely
scene.
Julia would just have got with Frank. Like, why did she marry Larry? Because they don't even remotely look the same. They've not even got like a similar vibe.
No.
It's not even giving what y'all said it was supposed to give.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Larry's
very
just so shallow end of the gene pool, wasn't he? Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably nice.
He's probably lovely. Yeah, but
I just came back from the dead and they told me you still not that girl.
Not my cup of tea. Whereas Frank,
God damn!
But I think it's because Frank can't be tied down. It doesn't explain a lot, but I think Frank just left.
Yeah.
He just smashed and dashed. Yeah, I'd have picked Frank any day of the week. What's really funny is if you watch it and notice there's always something off with Frank when he's talking, and that's because the actor's dialogue is dubbed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the actor's dialogue is dubbed.
Is it the same actor, or is it just completely replaced?
It's a different actor. I can't. Yeah, it gets. Forgive me. I've got a cold at the moment. That's why I'm so nasally. But also, my brain is fried. He's an English actor, so they had to dub somebody with an American accent. So it made sense that.
I mean, that leads on to a good point for me, because I think one of the things that had the appeal for me was that obviously it came from this like British perspective, and I think you look at the first Hellraiser in particular, and obviously a lot of the second as well. It's very apparent. It feels like it's in the UK.
Yeah,
like
the house is in the UK. I believe it's in Kent, but there are shots where it's filmed in the States, and you can really tell. And it's usually the bits with Kirsty.
And I mean, obviously,
because it puts you in this place where you're like, what the fuck's going on?
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
And I really love that.
No, I enjoy that. I will say I think that's probably something that I found a little jarring going then into Hellraiser 3, because then it
Pure
was obviously
Americana,
it was like New York. I mean, does it continue in the States then after that? Is it all American?
Yes.
We don't really go back.
All the films after that are all American-centric, yeah. We don't really... The most British things about the subsequent sequels are Doug Bradley. And then even in the original timeline, even the last two films don't contain Doug Bradley as well, so...
Yeah, that is a shame. Sacrilege, really. I think I that's always had the appeal for me. I do think Julia, if we are going to kind of take a moment, and I mean, I suppose that leads nicely maybe into the sequel as well, because Julia very much then becomes more of a factor of the story. What I absolutely loved, there was two things that I absolutely loved about Hellbound Hellraiser 2. I loved the fact that we were almost putting Julia in this like Universal Monsters-esque light, particularly with her rebirth, her getting wrapped in bandages, and like I just thought it was incredible. The music,
that dress and the music,
the music, the dress, and the friggin' the lightning that constantly appears every time she enters a room is just insanely good. I also love when she confronts Kirsty and she says about being she's no longer the wicked stepmother, but now she's the evil queen, and then just bitch slaps her across the room.
That slap was heard across the world and the underworld. It's absolutely iconic.
Pinhead's just quaking in his boots because it's like Julia's bitch slapped Kirsty upstairs.
I think that's why Leviathan chose her to be like his personal like lackey.
Just the backhand alone deserved an Oscar in my eyes. But
yeah, absolutely. I do love it though, because if you were to watch this for the first time in order, you wouldn't necessarily expect that of the second film. You wouldn't expect Julia to be the person to come back.
No.
You'd think of it'll probably be Frank being a big part again and the Cenobites. So to have Julia come back was quite a shock. And for the fact is, she was like, when she's just, because you realise that her coming back is very different to the way that Frank comes back.
Yes.
And then you find out that Leviathan, who is the god of flesh and all this, who's basically the god of this realm of hell within this universe, chose her personally to be his instrument to not just f*** people up, but also to create new Cenobites. And I really love that she was given this like really high station. I reckon Leviathan was like, I saw what you did for some good dick, and I appreciate that. But I also saw how you got f***ed over by the good dick. So how about you come work for me? You can put people in a fabulous wardrobe, and my dick monsters will turn them into angels/demons.
That is the intro soundbite right there. I absolutely love that. I mean, yeah, I think she's by far the strongest thing about the second film. Again, I've got to applaud the makeup effects. I just thought they were beautiful.
Stunning, yeah.
The way, I mean, like you said, her rebirth is completely different to how Frank comes back. It's not as grotty. And also, I mean, so I suppose I kind of didn't think about it in that literal sense that if, the Leviathan is the god of flesh, is that why when she gets her skin back, it's her skin, whereas obviously Frank had to wear Larry's skin?
Frank could have had his own skin, but he realised then that he needed to hide, because the whole thing about Frank
sight, I suppose,
is he needs to hide from the Cenobites because he knows that they're looking for him. So that's why he chose this. Yeah.
Because I really loved that, and I thought that was a really clever way of them to...
Yeah.
I mean, kudos obviously to the actor in the first one, Andrew Robinson, who played Larry, because there is that switch up at the end. And I mean, it's probably just contact lenses and a bit of eyeshadow, but you're like,
iconic,
that is a different, that's a different person in that skin now.
Such a good performance. And then poor Kirsty's like, none the wiser though. She just sees, I think she just, like,
Daddy!
Yeah. Oh God, I wish Frank could say, come to daddy to me. God, he's so fine.
There is something about him which I kind of find, like, I don't know. I guess it is that forbidden. I think Clive Barker knows what he's doing when he's
he does
on casting these men and getting these men involved in these films. So well done, Clive Barker.
Well, that's the thing about the second one. There isn't much eye candy in the second one, I don't think.
No, absolutely not.
They do make up for it in the third, because we'll get into it, but JP in the third is a whole other kettle of fish.
Absolutely.
Oh my good God. Mesh underwear. Oh. Anyway.
I mean...
Oh, yes, Daddy.
It was practically porn.
Yeah.
In the best way.
But yeah, in the second one, what I really like is we do get this expansion then. So we don't see the... Like, everything you think hell is, it isn't. So you see this MC Escher-inspired labyrinth, and you see Leviathan, and rather than being like this like red demon with horns, it's just this like prism with the same markings as the lament configuration or the Le Marchand box.
I did like that it was cold and blue and
Yes.
like desaturated and not fiery and like everyone getting burned and like I mean it again. This is Clive Barker, isn't it? Taking this idea of something that everyone knows and then completely flipping it. And I find it interesting that you say obviously the roots in Catholicism as well, because when you do think about it, I know obviously there is that massive like BDSM like kink culture feeding into it with the leather and the chains and everything, but they are robes, aren't they? Essentially,
Yeah, they are.
They're
They're
not.
robes
They're
of
not.
office.
And
then they even say like in the first films that like angels to some, demons to others. A lot of the dialogue sounds like something you'd read in a biblical text, I think. Like, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. Oh my God. We have such sights to show. And some of my favourite lines are from the Hellraiser series. I just think they're so chilling.
Also, Julia getting to say that line in the second one was
yeah.
beautiful. Chef's kiss.
Julia's line delivery as well, and not just her line delivery, her acting with her eyes is phenomenal. I will say her hair in the first one, I'm not a big fan.
The mullet.
You can tell that she loves
loves
a Cannavale net, and in the second one when it's like brushed out but still got that volume, and her eyes are so striking,
so piercing, aren't they? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh God, this is turning into a Claire Higgins fan cast now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm absolutely fine with that. I would be interested to see, or no, I mean, I haven't yet double checked, and I don't know if you know the answer. Was she under all those prosthetics for
No,
that was a different performer?
So again, that was a different performer, but Claire Higgins was dubbing the lines.
Right, okay. I thought that might have been the case. But I don't know. I noticed there was a lot of dubbing in the third one, in particular, but there's something about it that kind of makes me... Again, you know how we kind of said about the way that it's sort of American but then has these British things that we recognise, and it just kind of makes it feel a bit uncanny and a bit weird, off kilter. There's something kind of about that. I know it's probably not a deliberate thing. I imagine it's just a post-production thing, but I kind of appreciated it because it did feel like the sound design in the second one, particularly when Kirsty's going through the friggin' labyrinth. The amount of dubbed heel clicks in that one sequence is enough to think you're in hell, to be quite honest. It's a bit much, but I don't know. It's good fun.
What I really like about the second one is the idea of everyone having their own personal hell. So the room where it turns out that Frank has orchestrated Kirsty going to hell and all this by pretending to be a dad. But the idea of Frank's hell, because Frank's whole life was about sex and women, and the idea that there's these beautiful women in this room, but he can't do anything with them, so he's constantly being teased, but he's got to look at himself in the mirror while that happens, and there's all this makeup to like demasculate. I'm so sorry, I burped then. Good God. So to demasculate him, and like I love the idea of everything in there is about taking away his power as a man, and that's his idea of hell, and that's what he has to suffer with. I think that is fucking a crazy good idea. Even like
layers upon layers.
The execution of it as well is gorgeous. I love the design of that. I love there are designs that I hate and love in the second one. I hate Chenard's Cenobite look.
him floating about with the that just took me out completely when Mr. Cheesewire and I mean, one thing I did notice, and I didn't know if this is something that's maybe been pulled through, but obviously Kirsty recognises what she presumes is her dad's hell by the front door. That did very much make me think of Victor Creel and Stranger Things, the stained glass door and stuff there. And I didn't know when she looked and saw all that makeup if she was just going to turn around and get jump scared by a drag queen, to be quite honest, because there is a lot of makeup on that vanity. I will say that scene in particular, though, is maybe where I had like a bit of an issue, because for me, I think Frank was such a big part of the first one, and it was such a great reveal that, he's orchestrated all of this. He's been this like grotty body that we've been seeing and stuff. And then, don't get me wrong, I love that Julia's like the one to be like...
Nothing personal, babe.
I just thought it was rather fast.
It was, yeah.
Then, like you said, we kind of went into getting the Doctor Cenobite, and I was like, I don't need that. Like, keep him in his box. Like I want more of the other stuff.
Yeah, they did try to pack a lot into that second film. A lot was condensed into that. There was a lot of ideas to be condensed into that second film.
Yeah. I mean, another thing I also notice is that the Cenobites don't tend to appear in these movies until quite a way in, do they? And I mean, it reminds me of like how the Paranormal Activity films are. You're only really there for like the last 10-15 minutes where shit hits the fan. Like these films, you're obviously there for when the Cenobites turn up and start actually wreaking havoc.
They leaned into that in the later entries. So in the first two films, the Cenobites aren't I don't think they're the villains. They're just
They just want to be me. I just want to be me.
Oh my god, the GC Cenobite. The C and GC, the Gemma.
I've heard you've got dialysis. I'm sending you a khaki bag. Would you like khaki
Red or khaki?
Red or khaki?
Oh
Her
my
hell
god.
is just Gillian McKeith on the other end of the phone.
Anyone listening out there, if anyone could draw me Gemma Collins as Cenobite, that would make my whole life. That's like, I feel like that's my brand.
There'd have to be something to do with being claustrophobic. Oh my lord. And she doesn't get you with chains, it's just hair extensions. The fucking hair is frazzled.
Oh my god, I'm having the best time with this now. I want to see Gemma Collins in the next Hellraiser entry, please.
Yes. Okay, you heard it here first. It's a They're Queer exclusive. It's gonna happen.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
What's up? You ill?
Yeah, when the chains are in people. Sup, you ill? Am I gonna die?
It's through to the bone.
Oh my god.
The possibilities are endless.
And then when she takes the box away at the very end, she's like, you ain't ever gonna get this candy. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
So yes, tune into a Super Freak exclusive where we attain the rights of the Hellraiser franchise.
Yeah,
and
just for that.
If all the boys were upset about Jamie Clayton being cast as the Hell Priest, just wait till they get a load of Gemma Collins. Oh, that is incredible. So yeah.
I feel like we had a serious point at one point.
Oh wow. Oh, that's going to stick with me all day. Especially as I'm reading the Scarlet Gospels now. I feel like I'm going to be reading the Hell Priest.
Anytime someone says no, you're just going to hear
no!
Going, no! Fuck off, Gillian McKeith!
Oh, wow. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for you. Going back to the topic, obviously we really like the idea that they had their own personal hells. What do you think would be your personal hell if you had to visualize it? What do you think would be?
There would be
in there.
Do you know people who eat with their mouth open and slap their lips? It would be a banquet hall of people doing that.
Just
yeah. Oh my god, it winds me up. It would probably look a lot like London.
Yeah.
I don't really like London. Unless somebody wants to pay me to live there and get a great job down there. But
I need a sugar daddy!
I'm trying to think now. Oh, the only food I could eat would be beans. Baked beans. To be fair, my hell would be a lot more tame compared to most. I think... I don't like... I don't like dentist things. Like, if there's a scene in a film where anyone's getting any sort of dentistry done, even in Little Shop of Horrors, I just... the idea... I hate being at a dentist. The sound of the drills and everything, so I'd get tortured, and I think it'd just be one big dentist room. Like, the serious side of it is I know how they me up, and it'd be that. The unserious side is it's a banquet full of beans and everybody's slapping their lips.
A banquet full of beans and everyone's slapping their lips.
And there's turkeys in the room. Yeah.
Oh, jump scare.
Incredible.
What about yours? Yeah. What would your hell be like?
I mean, I hate wasps, and I also have the biggest fear of drowning. So I think perpetually drowning in a car that's filled with wasps, like if it was like going underwater, that would be pretty hellish for me.
Scuba suits on.
Yeah. So just anything involving wasps is not great. I don't know. I also kind of don't like London all that much. Yeah. So I know what you mean. It's like the older I get,
we share a name and we share a hell.
Yeah, I love. It's just, I just. I'm trying. I know what my hell will be, and I want to get onto this later. It would be watching Halloween Ends on repeat.
It's a movie about trauma.
I think that would be my hell. So, but I do like the idea of it. I think it's funny. Gemma Collins and Beans aside, I think it's a great idea. I imagine that's probably how it operates because it's obviously real.
So, in the Scarlet Gospels, you actually go to hell, and you get to go to Clive Barker's imagining of hell, and it's very different. It doesn't look like the Labyrinth. It's so weird because in the Boom Studios comics, which are supposed to be a continuation of the first two films, you find out that the hell that we see with the Leviathan, the MC Escher style, is only one level of hell. There's so many different levels, which is really cool. But then in the Scarlet Gospels, hell looks like it just looks like Rome, but underground and fiery and stuff like that. So it's more of a traditional... draconian hell. Okay. Anyway, so
fair enough.
Moving on to the third film, which is, I feel like, where the series starts to depart from its origins. There's still the same premise of there's a box or a pillar. Well, the pillar from the end of the second one, the weird pillar with a baby doll on it, and what's your pleasure, sir?
Just Jessie Ware, just playing at the end. Oh my god, that's changed the song completely.
I'd really like a orchestral version of "What's Your Pleasure," but Doug Bradley just narrating the lyrics.
Yeah, I mean that could work. That could definitely work.
Speaking of Doug Bradley music and narration, as an ex-goth, I used to really be into a band called Cradle of Filth. They've got an album called Midian, which is named after the place in Nightbreed, another Clive Barker thing. And because they have such a love for Clive Barker and Doug Bradley, they've got Doug Bradley on a couple of tracks on there, just
incredible,
speaking.
Just being.
They've got him on albums in the future as well, but I want to focus on Midian more than the others because there's a track called Her Ghost in the Fog, and Clive Barker opens that song with a narration, and a lot of his the things he says in Hellraiser, he says it so he's like, "Oh, no tears, please," but in his just the opening of that
was
song,
quite a good impression, I will say.
It's because I've got a cold to it. Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. If you don't have to listen to the whole song, just listen to the opening. Or you can do. It's quite a good song. I like it. But yeah, it's incredible. So yeah, and then the third film. Sorry for that segue. big departure from what we're used to, I think. So we're used to this quite intimate setting.
Yeah, definitely.
Even in Hell, it's still claustrophobic.
It's still the same corridor.
Yeah.
I'm claustrophobic, Darren.
But we don't have anyone returning in this one apart from the Cenobites.
I think we get Kirsty on VHS, but I'm not too sure it is. I didn't really. Yeah. I didn't know. I thought it was kind of clever, if that's how they needed to do the cameo.
Yeah.
But
this is so this is where Clive Barker is still got. I think he's still got a producing credit, but doesn't have a big thing in it. And I feel like this is where the cracks in the franchise really start to form, which will later fissure onto a huge gaping mess. But yeah, the one thing I just want to start off about the third film is I will talk about JP just for a couple of minutes now. So there's a sexy boy in this, like the what's in the first film, and he's kind of he's got that look of Frank about him a little bit.
Absolutely,
he's got like the olive skin, the dark features, but he's like ripped and he's into really rough sex, and you get to see his arse quite a lot. But there's a point where he gets up, he's wearing his underwear with like this mesh on it. Oh my god, like, talk about sexual awakenings. That was a big one. That and Blazing Squad. I realised I came to the
one and the same, really, aren't they?
Blazing Squad.
It's the mesh. It's the mesh.
I came to the conclusion the other week because I grew up on quite a rough chavvy council estate, and I grew up on like chav dick. So like, Blazing Squad were a big sexual awakening for me.
I grew up on chav dick.
I did, yeah. I cut my teeth. That's when I cut my teeth. But no, yeah. So I remember having the VHS for this and like rewinding the sex scenes.
Yeah.
And putting it on mute and just like watching them over and over again. Wishing I was the
I'm
girl.
sure that's all you were doing is just watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely something about those mesh boxes that does it for me. I googled.
I'm terrible at remembering names. I've got it written in my notes, but my computer's frozen a little bit. But the guy who played JP's still quite
fitty
nowadays. Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, I haven't finished this film, but I've seen many a clip.
Right.
So I'm aware that we do get a CD Cenobite, or a CD-ROM Cenobite, or whatever the hell it is. And also, there's a big shootout with cops and a lot of explosions. And
yeah.
So I mean, it like you said, it does blast that intimacy out of the water. I think
it really does, and goes for goes more like camp than anything else. Yeah, we get like a Cenobite with CDs in the face, and then one with like a video camera for an eye, and it's very of the time as well. They're cool ideas, don't get me wrong, like the idea of like what would a modern Cenobite be, but like it ends up turning into like the tone I would use for it. It's kind of like Underworld for me, you know, like camp scary, but like the thing is though, it doesn't get too camp, because I feel like with camp there's always that earnestness, and there isn't any of that there. They were just like, F it, this will look cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that was the approach, and I will say some of the lines and the way things happen in this film have been interesting, particularly where we're following the reporter, and I don't know, there's one scene where she's on hold for ages trying to get through to someone, and then as soon as they answer, she goes, "Just hold a minute," and then she has another conversation, and then when she goes back, she's like, "I need the videotape of Kirsty," and then they give it to her straight away, and then she just goes, "Yes." I was like, it was kind of it was a choices.
So I'm gonna have less and less to say about the next films, but I will say I like some of Joey's performance. I like the idea that it still continues that story. So we find out that in the second film, at the end, Dr. Channard ends up killing the Cenobites, but we see it's weird because they kill them and then they turn back to their human form. So we find out that there's been a separation between Captain
There's not
Elliot
really any
Spencer.
continuity, is there?
No, there's Elliot Spencer, who is the human who becomes the Hell Priest, and then the Hell Priest, and now they're two separate entities, and the Hell Priest is all the evil parts of Elliot Spencer, and yeah, it's...
I will say as well about that, like, obviously in the second film, we very much get to see the makeup come off Doug Bradley, like, where he then goes back to human form. And it is insane, because I don't think he looks anything like Pinhead when he's pinned, that's like Doug Bradley. Like, to say, I don't know, you know, like with Robert Englund and Freddy Krueger, there is a difference, but you can still very much see Robert Englund's face.
Well, that's really funny, because Doug Bradley tells a story about the rap party for Hellraiser. He wasn't allowed in because no one recognised him. And they had to get get Clive Barker to vouch for him and go, no, this is because no one had ever seen, like, the people had never seen him without makeup on. So like, who's this, like, barrister?
Baloney! Do you know what I mean? Yeah, he looks like so British and just proper. It's very funny. I do think as well, though, the third film was the time, I think, where it was getting into, like, it was very much in pop culture then at that point, wasn't it? The figure of Pinhead, because I know he made like appearances at like the VMAs and stuff, or there was like an awards ceremony, wasn't there, with MTV? And you kind of think, like, I don't know, that to me is like where maybe the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise maybe then started to fizzle a bit, when we started getting Freddy rapping and appearing on lunchboxes, and you're like, he's supposed to be this terrifying man in your dreams, but so I think it did tread a similar trajectory to those older ones, to the Nightmare on Elm Street films. So does it just get worse then from here?
It doesn't. The fourth one is, I prefer the fourth one. This is
Bloodline, isn't it?
Yeah, so the fourth one tries to... So you always talk about the first four films together, because they're all, like, they were the theatrically released ones. Everything after that wasn't. And you can tell why.
I call shade.
Is the fourth one where we get Angelique? Because I think I've seen the picture of her.
I love the character and design and everything of Angelique. So at the end of the third film, Joey's chucked the Le Marchand box into like a pool of concrete at a construction site, and then later we see the finished site, and it's a building that looks just like the box, and you're like, oh, so all these films end with like a weird, what the is that, and what's going on? Then we get the fourth film, which it's where Hellraiser goes to space.
Yeah.
I think that's just a good way of putting it. It's weird because there's bits set in the future in space, but then you get bits set in the past and then bits set in the present. So there's like three timelines going on. You get to find out all about the box. It's more about the box itself. So you find out the layman configuration, as people have been calling it. It's actually made by Le Marchand, who was this toy maker. He made these things, and they're all, like, it isn't just the box, there's other things, but they're all portals to hell. There's like a really good cast in here, to be honest. Valentina Vargas as Angelique is fucking incredible, but you get a young Adam Scott in here, and I've always fancied Adam Scott, and I think
Adam Scott is
so fine.
In a kooky way, I think. Absolutely.
But you get Adam Scott in here, and he plays this like aristocrat, Jacques, I think his name is. And he had like originally he had quite a small role, but then it got expanded on because like people really reacted.
They thought he was fit as well.
Well, yeah, people reacted strongly to him, but there was like the origin of Angelique ended up changing and all this lot. But you find out that there's other configurations of the box. So there's like the Elysium configuration and the anti-lament configuration, and it releases light, and oh my god, it's so confusing. It's so confusing. It's so good but confusing.
So it's definitely worth checking out then.
I prefer it because one, Angelique's character and design is sick. If no one's seen it, she's got like this exposed scalp. There's in the reboot. There's a character who does look a lot like, and she's supposed to be Angelique. And then there's this whole thing of Angelique and Pinhead being like a thing, and I've read fan fiction about them. It's not like sexy fan fiction, but people really took to this character.
Those two,
thought she was going to be like the big thing. But yeah, the big takeaway from Hellraiser 4 Bloodlines is Hellraiser does in fact go to space, and there's a space station.
I'm right in thinking as well. Then
box.
It goes to space before Jason went to space, because Jason X came out in 2001, and this was still
Did it
90s.
go to space before the Leprechaun went to space? So Bloodlines was 96, I want to say. Or
Leprechaun 4 in space was 96, so it was the same year.
Same year.
So Leprechaun and Pinhead went to space
both
the
went
same
to space
year.
in the same year. How sweet!
Probably saw each other out there, didn't they? Sandra Bullock spinning past. Interesting. I think that's always like a thing, isn't it? Even like the Scream films where they like joke and they go, "Oh, this film had time travel," or "This film went to space," and you're kind of like, "Oh, that'll never happen." It did.
I do love it when something stupid like that happens. Like, we've got Amityville in space now, haven't we? I mean, I haven't seen it because I've only watched the original Amityville horror film and then the Ryan Reynolds reboot because there's topos for these things. But no, I have not watched...
detecting a pattern here.
I've definitely not watched Amityville in space. But no, I don't mind it when they go to space. I quite like Jason X, you know. It might be stupid, but that's why I like it, because it's so...
I do have a fondness for it. Because it is in on the joke, I think.
Yeah, because it is in on the joke. That's why I like Jason. I mean, we're not doing that for this episode, but I just need to put that. I think Jason X is actually quite an underrated entry into that. I mean, considering some of the entries into that fucking franchise, especially Manhattan, which is where Screams go to New York. I suppose they'll go to Manhattan.
Yeah,
I wonder if Scream 4. I wonder if Scream 6 will just be half of it, like 3/4 of it will be on a boat.
I'm hoping so, because love that for them. Yeah, I think it's definitely taken a turning point then here, hasn't it, if we've gone to space. The intimacy that was there in the first two was blown out the water in the third, and now we're off-world. So I take it we return back to Earth in the following sequels. I mean, have you seen all of them? Even the ones without Doug
some
Bradley?
of them I've only watched like once, or maybe not even all the way through once.
There is a part of me who, because I've started doing these now, there is a part of me that thinks I kind of want to just watch all of them to say I've watched all of them.
That's fair. So
I might do.
The films that come after this, as a lot of people, like, it's a big thing in horror trivia that a lot of people know about, but if you don't, it turns out that a lot of the subsequent sequels after 4 as well, not only were they direct-to-video, but they were scripts that already existed to be made into films, that Miramax just were like, oh, okay, so if we just put the Cenobites in there somewhere, we can turn this into a Hellraiser film. And you can really tell, because half of them are like gritty detective stories. It's like, imagine watching, like, I don't know, what's a gritty detective? Like, imagine Along Came a Spider or Seven. And they randomly put... Well, 7 would make more sense, I think, to have.
What's in the box?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, missed opportunity, quite honestly.
But yeah, so like, the 5th film is all about like a corrupt detective. There's a murderer called the Engineer who's kidnapped a kid and all this, like, and then...
so it's very, very different then. I mean, is Kirsty out of them from this point, or does she come back?
Kirsty's out of them. She comes back for one. Oh god, which one was that? Because the Kirsty one was shite as well. Yeah, it's the 6th one actually. It's Hellseeker, 2002. Kirsty comes back. It's probably one of the better ones of the shit ones, which sounds awful. Kirsty, I want to say... She doesn't have a change of character in it, and it's dead weird. Spoiler alert for anyone who does want to watch it, Kirsty becomes like a bit of a bitchy villain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does she become a Julia?
No, not to that extent.
Or does just no one become Julia?
No one could ever become Julia. So the 6th one, is where Kirsty comes back, and it's like, it's okay. I mean, you could watch it. The 7th one is called Hellraiser 7 Deader. Deader. 'Deader'. 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 ' And this one is about a cult who calls themselves the Deaders, and it's an investigative journalist.
Shite then.
It's shit. Again, it was an original film that just randomly had that put onto it. Now, the one that I will talk about a bit more is Hellraiser 8, Hellworld. And
okay.
There's only really one reason why I want to talk about it. So this one's weird because it was not going to be a Hellraiser film, but I feel like the way they put it in was a little bit more clever. So it's about a group of people who are addicted to playing an online computer game called Hellworld, which is based on the Hellraiser series.
Okay, so is it like meta? Do the films exist in the film?
Yeah, and it's weird. It's very weird, but it's shit. But the saving grace is it's got a young Henry Cavill in there, and he looks so fucking handsome in it. I mean, he's a lot younger, so he's not the Henry Cavill that we know and love now, and he's not like big and muscly and just ripped and just like body hair and beard and big arms and quads and but he's still cute in this. He's like
the people at home. Liam was just closing his eyes and touching himself as he was reciting Henry Cavill's features.
He's like a dick. He's like a boy in it. He's a younger Henry Cavill, and he's got like his jawline still there, and he's still fit. So you could watch it if you want to watch something that tries to do something a little bit different. It's not great, but again, Henry Cavill's in it. You could watch it just for that. Doug Bradley's still in it, which
was this
is
Doug
nice.
Bradley's last one?
It is the final film to feature Doug Bradley.
Yeah, because I know we did get a couple more, didn't we? But
so then we got the next
recast.
one was Revelations, which it's awful.
Yeah, I think awful. Pretty much from the outset it looked awful.
It was rushed. I think it was. So
they were losing the rights.
They were losing the rights.
Yeah.
This was done in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
Like a matter of weeks, and you can tell, and like, oh god, it's.
I mean, that's again, where it bothers me when studios are in because it's the whole thing that's been going on, obviously, with the Friday the 13th kind of dealio at the moment. I mean, that's going to hopefully be resolved, and we are getting this prequel series, aren't we? Yeah, on Paramount Plus. Yeah, the fact that it's just insulting to fans. Like I hold my hands up. I'm not the biggest fan of this franchise. I do see the redeeming factors and qualities of it, absolutely. But I just find that at the biggest insult. Like, you're going to lose the rights, so we know that the fans are going to spend money on this, so let's just deliver a plate of dog shit and then let them have it.
Doug Bradley was like, I'm not, because Doug Bradley, they approached him to be like, we're making another one, and he was like, what, you want me to get into all this makeup that takes hours to get a film finished in a matter of weeks, and the script is a nothing script, so no. It's another film that it's like a detective film and researching a videotape, and then somehow the Cenobites get involved. This one ends up having Stephen Smith Collins as Pinhead, but is dubbed over by Fred Tatasciore, who's I could go into their voice acting credits, but I'd rather not. If you've watched an animated film or a game, good chance that they've done it. They've voiced the Joker before, I believe. Incredible voice actor. So they are not getting any criticism from me because fantastic voice actor, but everything else about it is absolutely shy. So then they were like, okay, should we make another one?
Do you want another one?
Nobody wanted another one. Nobody wanted,
got one anyway.
Yeah, nobody wanted another one, but we got it anyway. And then it's called Hellraiser Judgment.
Baloney!
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking Heather Langenkamp
is in it? Yeah. Which is probably the only reason why I'd maybe go back and watch it. But
I considered watching it just because it was the first thing I know she'd done in a while, and obviously horror.
Yeah.
Acting wise, because I know she's been more behind the scenes, hasn't she, more recently?
Well, and she gets back on a screen, so then it gets fucking cancelled.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Netflix, you twats. Anyway, I'm not going to go. It's that. So then the next one, you get more of Pinhead, who's like, oh, how many more ways can we torture people? Oh, the humans are finding better ways to torture one another. And then we get into, wait for it, yet another detective story. Yeah, about 3 detectives investigating a serial killer known as the Preceptor, whose murders are based on the 10 Commandments.
Oh, original. I thought you were going to say known as the Prosecco then.
Yeah.
I thought...
God's in this one.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Who's he played? Literally, who's he played by?
Oh, no. But God ends up
there's a force of God.
Yeah, God ends up, like, destroying Thingy. Heather Langenkamp plays the landlady in it. And she's, to be fair, she's quite an iconic character in this because she's just pure filth and is constantly smoking, and it's a bit of me that. But if you want to watch a good Heather Langenkamp film,
don't watch that.
You could watch a lot of other things. You know what I mean? The production for this got delayed, and there was no marketing for it because Dimension were like, our parent company is owned by Harvey Weinstein, and we don't, until
there was a lot going on. Yeah.
So it's just, don't watch it. But, or do watch it. You can make your own opinions, but I hate, the worst part about it is that the makeup design in this and the makeup effects are
just
not great. But speaking of fantastic makeup and makeup designs, this year in 2022 we got a reboot of the franchise which aimed to bring it back to its roots, which I think it did very successfully. There is more of a focus in the new one on the Cenobites, but I feel like it's still they aren't the villains in it, which I really appreciate. I really appreciate. If nobody's watched it, go and watch it, and then pause here, go watch it, come back. I
mean, well, it is available to watch now in the UK because that was a whole thing. Wasn't
that was
it?
a whole
that
thing,
got it.
Yeah.
Like ages later.
I'm not admitting to it, but I may or may not have had to have illegally streamed it because I needed to watch this film.
Absolutely, there was spoilers about it immediately.
Got really excited for this when it was announced, and they announced some of the casting, and then that was a whole thing. Like the internet exploded, and the reason why it's exploded is because Jamie Clayton was cast as the Hell Priest, or just the priest as they're known in this, who traditionally is known as Pinhead, and Doug Bradley plays the role. But they were like, Pinhead isn't a woman, and they were like, well, no, you're right, but they're also not female. Like they're not.
Yeah, they're
not
sexless.
Yeah, and then to cast a trans woman in that role, it was phenomenal. I think because it keeps that queerness to the character, but also Jamie Clayton proven in this role. I think that they have some fucking incredible villain acting chops, and
absolutely. I
loved it. It didn't retread too much old grounds. They made something new with it. But yeah, I really appreciated that they mixed it up a bit, so we didn't get the same story. We got a new story. It was still the same premise of this box is like a portal.
Well, there's
to a
fundamental elements, isn't there, that I think is in the DNA of any Hellraiser movie, and this definitely contained them.
It has the sex, it has the gore, it has the sexy hellish creatures. Yeah.
I really liked how this came about because it's directed by David Bruckner, and I was a big fan of his film The Night House.
Yes,
and I know that was written and initially conceived to potentially be a Hellraiser story. And then, so it's funny actually learning that the later Hellraiser films were stories that then had Hellraiser like injected into them with like no consideration. Whereas David Bruckner was part of a movie that was potentially going to have Hellraiser elements and then became its own thing. And then he then got a stab at the franchise afterwards.
Yeah.
I really, really dug this adaptation, and I will say, based on the fact I didn't love the older films, I was then kind of like, I don't know. So I was happy that it was fresh and it was a new story and had new elements.
Extremely happy. I'm glad that, like, even the box, like, because we see
becoming its own character and becoming its own, like,
that's what was incredible.
Thing,
and then the idea that like the fans called it the Lament configuration, it still is that, but that's one configuration, and then there's the Leviathan configuration. We got all those, like, little things, and then I feel like this film was made with so much love and respect to the original work. The makeup designs and applications in this are absolutely insane. There was a lot of people who were disappointed that they weren't these leather-clad S&M angel demons, but there's something a bit more sexy and sick and twisted about their robes of office, so to speak, being made out of skin, in their own skin.
I mean, I think he said himself, didn't he, David Bruckner? He said, obviously, leather is a type of skin that you're wearing, so why not just make it out of your own skin? It's one of those ideas. It's that light bulb moment where you think, well, why hasn't anyone thought of this before? Like, and it's just that. I mean, I really loved the Evil Dead remake back in 2013, and that again took, like, the DNA of the Evil Dead films, but then did something completely different with it. And I think that's exactly what they did with Hellraiser and the Hellraiser reboot, because. Well, I don't want to necessarily say reboot, but I suppose it is, or reimagining rather, because we didn't need the origin story. We knew who these characters were. We immediately knew who the Cenobites were. We knew what the box was. We knew fundamentally what was going to go down. So I think these creative liberties were great.
They also stuck to hiring a fit person in it. The main character, Squeeze, is a bit of alright, but there's that scene where he's in a shower and you can see how fucking fat his arse is.
That ass.
I know he turns out to be a bit of a bastard, but as we've established in this,
absolute
I don't mind
melon
that at all. He's got a big fucking dump truck.
I want you to park that big Mack truck right in this little garage.
And I appreciated that. I didn't appreciate that the first two characters we see getting killed off are homosexuals. That upset me. But also, I'm also one for equality, so we can be
gay
killed
rights
off first as well. Gay rights.
I know what you mean.
With the designs that they've got, not just the skin designs, but they've got, like, the mechanical in it, so it's like they're tied to the box, but also another layer is you've got the Hell Priest with all the pins in the head, but all the other Cenobites have, like, one or two of those pins, which kind of maybe says, like, to shows that they are subservient to the priest, but also if there's only one pin in them, does that mean that they're like a private and then a major, and then, like, if we're talking army ranks, like, there's so much to unpack with it.
I need an art book, like a making of book. I want to see all the concept art. I want to see all the behind the scenes stuff. I want to find out more. I think that's the only thing I don't like about the fact that it went straight to streaming. Like, I want a physical release, and I want behind the scenes on it.
Jamie Clayton, like, again, just like Doug Bradley, line delivery is f***ing insane. I was never scared of Pinhead, but I was scared of Jamie Clayton's Hell Priest. I think, like, really, really, but not scary as in...
It was just the unpredictability,
Oogly bitch. It was the, I don't know what the f***'s going to happen. Why are they so f***ing calm? And, I mean, I know that...
I mean, this is it. Yeah, it just made it so much more sinister.
What is it you pray for? What is it you pray for?
Like, I mean, even from that trailer, I remember the teaser trailer coming out, and, like, you just hearing their voice for the first time, and hearing them delivering, like, pain and suffering all for us, and it was just like, it really got under my skin. And I don't know, I don't really find the old Hellraiser films, I don't find scary in the slightest. They gross me out, and like I said, I
was a kid, reaction. I was scared of Frank, but I wasn't scared of the Cenobites.
But because I suppose Frank was the sort of person who you'd get told not to accept candy off of and get in a van with, isn't he?
I would have as a child. No.
But I think, there was something. I don't know that as well. Each kind of Cenobite seemed to have like the way that they were made, or like the way that they appeared.
Oh, the
seemed
one
to be
who's
something
like,
related to like how they were suffering, or the torture
and sex as well. Like the one who's like the autoerotic asphyxiation one, the one with the skin just covered. Oh my god, genius! Because a lot of criticism that I saw said, "Oh, it's not as sexy as the first one." And I was like, I don't know how you say that, because I think it is. Like there are sex scenes, yes, but I think the sexiness in it is from. I shouldn't find the Hell Priest sexy, but there is something undoubtedly sexy about them.
Yeah,
there's something. Oh my god, it's insane.
It's like that, when you pass a car crash, isn't it? You don't want to look, but you've got to look.
What I also love that they brought the original score back for that bit at the end, because the
score's one of the greatest things about the Hellraiser series.
Oh my god,
Hellraiser.
Oh god, I hate Hellraiser. Oh, now imagine what's his name, Kelsey Grammer.
No,
I can't do an impression, and I don't want to. But Frasier as Pinhead, I think
that's getting a reboot, isn't it? So,
Frasier,
yeah, and I'm not too sure if he's involved.
Who asked for that?
I don't know. We're suckers for punishment.
Well, much like the people in the Hellraiser franchise. I like that it touched on a lot more. So we had addiction storyline in this, and I full spoilers, but the ending of this still sits with me now and gets me. That they, rather than killing or fucking up the protagonist, they said, she was like, I don't want any of it, and they were like, well, actually, you've chosen to live without your loved ones and as an addict and being spurned by your lover. So actually, that's a form of suffering. You've chosen the lament configuration, because lament being sad. And I just when that was, I was like, you clever fucking bastard, sir. You are in a hell on earth of your own making. Oh,
but yeah,
layers.
Absolutely.
Layers.
It's I mean, I didn't love the protagonist in this reboot. I
didn't.
But I think it was kind of supposed to be like that, because I mean, again, talking about the Evil Dead remake alongside this, obviously Mia's at the forefront of that, fighting addiction. That's what gets her into the Evil Dead side of things.
With an attractive brother. Both of them have attractive brothers, yeah.
Indeed. So this was kind of similar in its approach, but then I think what was gut-wrenching about it was the fact that you didn't necessarily care about you didn't necessarily like the protagonist, but then, I don't know, someone like Nora, for example, who really didn't deserve their fate in this film. God. It then made that more heartbreaking, if that makes sense, because you'd be like, well, that's probably, she had more of the values of what you traditionally see in like a final girl, and she isn't the final girl. And plus also, we're getting a queer character making it to the end, who we thought was definitely going to die, because history says queer people get killed in horror movies, and you think it's going to happen. So I think that was clever, because I know there's talks about there being more.
I want there to be, but also there's a TV series in the works, isn't there?
Yes, but I think that's a completely separate entity, I'm sure.
Yeah, but
I don't think I mean, this is where it becomes a problem again, because then
part of me does want to see more, because I'd quite like.
I want more of the film universe, though.
Yeah, that's what I want. But also at the same time, if it's just that one film, I'm happy. It's a very well self-contained story that could be expanded on. I'd obviously love to see Jamie Clayton return as the Hell Priest, because what a fucking performance that was.
Yeah.
And that's not to disregard anyone else's performance. They were just as good. I really liked...
but they fully made it their own. Absolutely, in this film. Like, it was just... I don't know. I loved everything about it.
The one who plays Voight, I can never pronounce his surname, but he was the sexy dickhead boyfriend in Practical Magic, he's so
Goran Viznik.
Goran Viznik.
Yeah.
He was great in it. I'm glad that we got to see him return. Oh God, he's still so attractive. But I like that we got to see his transformation into a Cenobite at the end as well, which is like, oh.
Yeah, but I messaged you, didn't I, when I watched this? Because I was a little unsure as to if that was what it was.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, I think it was quite a stark image, wasn't it? Like, it was almost heavenly, like the way that it was kind of put forward, which I thought was interesting. I mean, probably one of the only things that I had maybe going into it expectation wise was that I thought it was going to be a lot more gory than it was.
Yeah,
like,
same.
For me, the things that really hit were more when people got cut with the box, which I thought was genius. But like, I know it sounds silly. You know, if I saw someone getting like a paper cut in a film, I'd probably wince more than if I saw someone get like cut in half. Because I don't know. It's like I know
when people
the pain
stand
of
on
that.
nails in the film, like in Home Alone or that Final Destination film.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I don't know. I think I expected like a little bit more. I mean, we get like some of the chain pulley stuff with Jerry, the guy at the start, and then Nora a little bit further in. I think, when her boyfriend gets it, that was pretty grim. And the bit with the pin through the throat and the noise.
Yes. Oh.
Genius.
The sound design and
genius.
And it's just, I really like Hulu have released, I can only think of two off the top of my head, but some great horror, like this and Prey have been like two big franchises brought back in a different way. Like, I think Prey is the best. I've never been a Predator fan. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like big, well, I do like big muscly action men, but I don't like that in the horror films going up against, but this one being like, just it toned down and made
a Native American
craft.
Story coming from a completely different perspective, historical angle. Like it can. Yeah, I mean, well, if it's okay, I did kind of want to talk a little bit about horror, the landscape of horror as well this year, and I think this feeds nicely into it because Hellraiser for me wasn't necessarily super high on my list of like what I was looking forward to. It was something I knew was there, but I was looking forward to like Halloween Ends, Evil Dead Rise, which obviously has got pushed because it's got like great audience test scores. And I will say, like, the likes of Prey and Hellraiser were things where my expectations were quite low, just because I'd seen The Predator, I'd seen Predators, and I wasn't that impressed and didn't know that there was a story that could be told there. And actually really blew me away, and it was the stuff that I really thought I'd be impressed by and knew I could count on, like Scream or Halloween, that then fell short for me, unfortunately, this year.
It has been a great year for horror, because it's been a great year for horror box office sales more than anything, and showing people that, you know, invest more into it. I was a bit slow on the uptake of watching Barbarian. A lot of people watched it before me, and I went in with no expectations, expecting to just be... But I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah, see, I absolutely... I hated it. I loved the first 40 minutes. And then you'll know the bit if you've watched the film. It suddenly changes into something else. I'm glad you actually brought up Barbarian. I also hated the fact that there just was a random slur just added halfway through as well, and I didn't really feel like it was motivated. We knew the character was a dick.
We knew that. I feel like the character was one of the people who'd be very capable of saying it, but I also didn't appreciate it. I don't like. Do you know the design of the monster lady? I feel like I've seen that design now a million times.
Well, to say that Smile came out just before, which was extremely similar in terms of antagonist, and
but
I mean, obviously, I know it wasn't a big baby woman. But the bit when she flies off the cornmeal though at the end. Sorry, spoiler alerts. I was fucking howling.
That's why I laughed.
The
a lot,
slow mo.
But when I realised that it's because the first 40 minutes it takes itself quite seriously. And then it doesn't, and I was like,
I think it'd be like Malignant for me. Like, you know, going into it a second time, I know what I'm expecting. I'll probably enjoy it more.
Now I've rewatched Malignant, knowing what it's going for. I've enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it, so
similar DNA, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the thing with Barbarian. When the tone switched completely, I paused the film and I went away for half an hour because I was like, I had to look to see that. You know, I wasn't watching some dodgy link that, like, or something that fucked up, and I was watching a new film.
Mama?
There's been some good. I mean, I have come to really, really love, appreciate, and adore X. I've watched it about 5 times now.
Yeah. Have you seen Pearl yet?
I haven't seen Pearl yet. I want to.
Oh my god, Liam! Probably close second film of the year for me.
That hasn't been released in the UK, and it's not being released until March. I know that. So I know.
Definitely not obtained it in a. But
I want because way. I've heard so many good things. I've just watched Bones and All. That was a dreadful film, but I've also read the book, so I knew what I was expecting. Oh, and we've had our first teaser of Scream 6. Gone to New York. I'm not going to get as hyped as I did for the last one, because I think that's part of the reason that I was disappointed, is because I overhyped it to myself.
I'm liking the idea of a fresh setting.
Me too.
I love that Kirby's back.
I can't wait to see Samara Weaving.
Is interesting. Love the fact that we see Samara Weaving's character in Ready or Not paid homage to in the Halloween costumes. I love the fact that it's Halloween setting, and I think it's genius to have that and then on a subway.
Yeah, like that shot was
perfect.
Chilling, I think. Yeah, so we've got that coming. What else came up? I've watched The Invitation.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed that.
Every single second of it.
It was like Van Helsing.
It's like Twilight and Van Helsing. It's camp.
It's camp as balls.
I predicted everything that would happen, and I was right. But purely because, spoiler alert, if you've read Dracula or you're a fan of Dracula, you know what's
probably going to know what's happening. Yeah,
I loved I thought, I was like, this was a film made for the girlies, gays, and days. Like, it's got everything, and it ticked so many boxes for me.
This is what I mean, though. Like, I heard everyone absolutely thrashing it and saying how shit it was, and then went into it thinking, oh god, and actually had quite a good time with it. So there was a lot of films this year where the expectations
I watched They/Them, something I won't be watching again.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It could have done a lot more.
I'm not going to get into it. I feel like it deserves a whole video essay on that. I do have a lot to say about it. We had our first... We had 2 entries into the MCU franchise that went into horror. We had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, directed by horror legend Sam Raimi, that delved into horror and was some quite chilly moments. But then we had The Werewolf by Night, which is
loved that
homage to
just old like, monster movies,
like Universal monster movies, and was
perfect,
fucking incredible. Like probably the best Marvel entry, I think, because it dared to do something different, and it wasn't there to be like, here are some very well-known actors. We're going to have a quip every 5 seconds, and we're going to have these screaming goats that you think will be really charming and funny all the way through it, but they get annoying after 2 seconds.
Yeah.
We had some great horror TV this year.
Yeah.
Yellow Jackets has been picked up for a 3rd season before the second season even come out, so I
think that's March.
I am fed with that. Like, that has made me so happy. Yellow Jacket's probably my TV highlight of the year, maybe.
But I watched it and was absolutely obsessed. So as soon as I found out that there was more, and I mean, I don't know. It could very easily go a different way. And I mean, this again links in with the Hellraiser of the episode. I've got to say, probably one of my biggest disappointments this year was AHS NYC, and I knew it was going to be. And I didn't
watch it because I knew what it was going to be.
The fetishization of just the AIDS pandemic and actually using the kink scene, demonizing the kink scene, and literally having. I mean, it's not a spoiler. You've probably like kind of seen online. There's a character called like Big Daddy, who's this big leather daddy in it, and ultimately is AIDS, killing people, and it's just.
I'm so glad I didn't watch it. I'm so glad I didn't watch it.
And not to say that there weren't some good performances in there, but it was a pile of shit.
I've made my thoughts on that series and that creator very.
But do you know what I mean? Like, you know how Hellraiser. Touches on those kind of subjects and like forbidden pleasure and sex and the queer side of culture and everything. It like the reimagining and even the old films did it with such class.
Yeah,
that was just a textbook of what not to do with it, because it just took so many steps backwards for queer representation in horror.
Yep.
Like it was just disastrous, absolutely disastrous. And yeah, I've got to say, the elephant in the room, Halloween Ends. Awful. Awful.
It was...
I'm so mad.
I think I told you I really liked the last 10 minutes when it was just Michael and Laurie. I really liked their confrontation. I really
what the film was sold as.
Yeah, I liked. Well, that's the thing. There's just today it got announced that there's been a ruling that films companies can now get sued if they have a misleading trailer.
Is that why Halloween Ends was trending again on Twitter?
Probably, yeah. Because it wasn't that film; it was another film, but that's another one. I think.
I mean, I kind of get with that. You don't want to give away your big rug pull. And I mean, hopefully by now you've had since Halloween to watch it. You'll kind of know that it isn't necessarily the film it's cracked up to be. I wanted to like it so bad. I nearly teared up at one point seeing Laurie be happy. You know, when she has that nice moment
she's at the supermarket. Yeah.
Me and my mum went to go to see it at the cinema together, and it's a very special series for us because it's probably one of the first things I watched with her to be introduced to horror. And this was penned as the big, this is it, it's gonna end. Yeah, it ended. How we got there was not great. It's no. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is great. She always is. She was never bad.
Yeah, cannot follow her performance at all.
I don't think any of the performances were bad. It was just the story. It was a bad story.
Do you know what the series really reminds me of? The Star Wars sequel series. The Force Awakens got everyone excited again. There was enough nostalgia and callbacks there for people to enjoy it, but had something new, introduced new people to it. Then you had the second film, which divided fans. Some fans loved it, others hated it. The same with The Last Jedi. That really did it. Then The Rise of Skywalker was here's something completely different. That one is a bit nonsensical, isn't what the fans think they're giving fan service when they're not actually.
Yeah.
And then I keep referring to it. Just really reminds me of I'm just really glad at the end she wasn't what's your name? Myers, Laurie Myers. I was expecting it, to be honest.
I
did, but I said that there was moments I love. I think Jamie Lee Curtis, one of her finest performances ever, got to do so much in this. Got to play a grandma. She got to play a grandma, the bits where they're baking at home, and it's just I really liked that. But then you got to the confrontation.
Well, it just didn't make sense though that the first film opens up with her having 40 years worth of trauma and she can't get over it after 40 years. Sure. Then literally her daughter is killed.
It's fine now.
And then she's like, do you know what? We're going to have Halloween this year.
She was the fucking dead weight I needed to trim.
Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I felt, yeah. Yeah. As soon as Karen was out of the picture, she was thriving. Yeah, just a weird
but
one.
We've got, there's the pin has been stuck in it now, and hopefully but Hellraiser and Halloween do have a big connection to them as well. The success of Freddy vs. Jason.
Freddy!
There was always a lot of is there going to be because they were pitching, there was supposed to be a sequel to that where it's Freddy vs. Jason versus Ash from the Evil Dead.
I mean, come on, get real.
That got turned into a comic instead. But they were going to do Hellraiser versus Halloween. Doug Bradley announced that it was going to be written by Clive Barker, directed by John Carpenter.
Which would have been fucking awesome.
Holy that! Inject that into my
But I also don't really know how that would work.
I think somebody, who was it? I was watching a great video on YouTube and I wish I could remember what it was, but somebody was saying a really interesting way of going about that would have been if they'd have made it non-canonical and made Michael, the reason why he's so evil is he's the personification of this ancient ritualist Samhain and Halloween and stuff going up against these Cenobites. I would have preferred...
It could work.
I would have preferred Freddy versus Jason versus Pinhead.
What kind of
just so the box came out and it was just little Kelly Rowlands on a hook.
You're not even scary. You're not even scary.
Imagine just a box when you open it, hooks come out of it, and they all call you a fan.
Now, I will say something that did not disappoint me this year was that that film that she did with Netflix.
Yes.
I absolutely loved it. The Curse of Bridge Hollow. Dare I say, I think I enjoyed it more than Hocus Pocus 2.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
Same.
It kind of just, it had that charm to it, and it just did everything I wanted it to do. As soon as they went into the old people's home, and then I saw the big spider on the roof, I was like, yeah, this is the film for me.
Just a shout out while I'm here to Kelly Rowland. I do it every episode, but we had a month off, so just to make up for that, I just want Kelly to know that she's loved and appreciated, and I'd do anything in the world for her.
What kind of
And I wish you would open up a cameo.
Can you imagine?
So I'd be like,
we would spend so much money.
You can say it. Don't worry. I will pay you double what you're asking for.
Double your fee.
And it won't go anywhere. It will be just for me. Like, I wouldn't show it to anyone else in the world unless, actually, when I die at my funeral, do you know when teachers used to roll out the TV? They'll do that, and they'll play my cameo of Kelly Rowland calling me a
Oh, love that for you. Love that.
I think we've come to a lovely end of discussing Hellraiser, unless you've any final thoughts.
No, I think it's just a very interesting series. I'm quietly optimistic to see where it goes, is what I'll say. Yeah.
So I'm going to kick us off with our recommendations by recommending that everybody read the original novella, The Hellbound Heart, by Clive Barker. It is fantastic. But if you want to watch really good continuations...
Really good what?
If you want to watch really good continuations of the first two films, I highly recommend checking out the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics, not the Marvel Studio ones. The Boom Studio ones. They were written by Clive Barker themselves, well, co-written by Clive Barker, and it really gets into it. I don't want to give anything away, but your favourites come back. Kirsty is the central character of it as well. You get all returning favourites. If you've read any other of Clive Barker's work, there are some characters who come into it, which is really cool. It gets a bit nonsensical in the towards the end of the first volume. There's I think it's 20 or 21 issues of the first volume. Towards the end it starts getting like, what the fuck is going on? I'm dead confused. But then subsequent entries get a lot better, and you get to see a lot more of Clive Barker's imagination of hell in the Hellraiser series, and Kirsty's character goes on a huge journey. You get to see a lot more of Hell Priest / Pinhead. Yeah, really good. You can also check out a really good documentary called Leviathan. That's about the first two Hellraiser films. You get a lot of insight. You get to see a lot of behind the scenes footage as well, which is really cool. And one of my favourite images in the whole world that exists on the internet is Doug Bradley in Pinhead makeup smoking a cigarette. It's incredible.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that picture. Iconic. Love it.
What's your recommendation to us this month?
I want to recommend something which I think it's a film that's kind of stuck with me that I watched this year, which I found quite harrowing. It's called Speak No Evil, and it's a Danish horror thriller.
Okay.
It's not a horror film in terms of how you'd expect. Like I said, I think it's just the fact that it does things that you don't expect to see in film.
Okay.
And it's more the uncomfortability of the situation. Essentially, there's a Danish family become friends with a Dutch family while they're on holiday in Italy.
Right.
And then they decide to meet afterwards, a year after the holiday. And they come together, and then I don't really want to give away too much, but there's a lot of misunderstandings and weird things happening, and then the ending is just something that will absolutely floor you. And it kind of, the only thing I could describe it's akin to how Eden Lake made me feel. It's just that
the one with Jack O'Connell.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So it just makes you think, Jesus.
Oh, lovely. I'll check that out. Oh, sorry. I thought I muted myself then.
Enjoy, listeners.
Yeah, so as usual, I have a fantastic hookup horror story for you this month.
I honestly can't wait. It's been so long.
I got this one sent to me by a good friend of mine. Well, sent to me is, I approached them and said, I know you have some dirty stories, give me one. And they were like, I've got a really good one. And I was like, okay, it's the start of the year, so I'll keep this. So,
oh god, so you've been sat on this for the whole year?
Yeah, amongst other things. So they do want to remain anonymous. There is a name mentioned in this, but they've changed the name to hide the.
Okay, so everything is If this was a documentary, they'd be in shadow and their voice would be distorted. Yeah. That's what you're saying, yeah. Okay.
So get comfortable, dim the lights, and get ready for a hookup horror story. Christmas is the time where I become a real ho-ho-ho. And a few years back, I was feeling especially slutty, so I was treating Grindr like an advent calendar. Opening my windows and getting the chocolate fingered out every single day.
Oh my lord.
We're off to a great start. It was the night of the office Christmas party, and I was going in on a few bottles of Prosecco before I even got to the party. As usual, the party was just people I don't like talking utter horseshit about work, so I got on Grindr to plan my escape. As soon as I open it, I notice a familiar face. The cute lad from HR, who I'd lusted after since starting, was right there, so I polished off my glass and decided to shoot my shot. My flirting game was on top form, and we agreed to meet up outside for a smoke. We did so, we had a laugh, we had a gossip about everybody we worked with, and then he tells me he wants me. I suggested we get an Uber to my place because it's not far from town, but he said he doesn't want to wait. He can't wait. Pure excitement is dripping from every pore as quick as the pre-cum is dripping from my dick. He says there'll be no one in the HR office, so we rush there, and we barely make it through the door before we're like ripping each other's clothes off. We're getting very hot and heavy when he tells me he wants to tie me up. The kinky shit goes to the Christmas tree in the office, grabs the tinsel off it, and proceeds to tie my hands behind my back, and then gets to work with my face planted on his desk.
Wow.
Things are getting intense and almost ready for the grand finale. My head is uncontrollably spinning around in pleasure when my eyes notice a dark shape under the desk in front of us. The shape is shuddering, and then I notice coughing and spluttering. I tell HR boy to stop for a moment and nod in a direction of the sounds, and suddenly he shouts, "Mandy!" He quickly pulls out and pulls his trousers up and runs over. It turns out it's his colleague, and she's ran under the desk crying and throwing up. Without even hesitating, he runs out of the office, leaving Mandy under the desk chucking her guts up. And I'm there with my trousers around my ankles, bussy in the air, and my arms tied behind my back. I try my best to set myself loose, but HR boy really knows how to tie a decent knot. So I have to ask Mandy if she can come over and untie me, but she's too wasted beyond belief. She's staring at me, tears streaming down her face, makeup is and there's sick all over her boohoo dress. Next thing I know, the doors of the office bust open, and there are all the girls from HR. There are a few loud shrieks of surprise as they rush over to Mandy and enter full mum mode, trying not to notice the twink in the office with his dick and his cooch out. HR boy comes over all coy, blushing as he slurs an apology and unties me. I quickly dress and run off. I exit the building and take the walk of shame home. Anyway, after a very lovely Christmas, I return to the office in the new year, and as soon as I enter the building, people are avoiding eye contact with me and whispering to one another. I get pulled into a meeting with my boss, who tells me that someone has reported me for the incident at the work party. I will later go on to find out through the office gossip that it was one of Mandy's saviours who came in that night. Don't worry, I was sure to air her dirty laundry too. Luckily, I didn't get fired, but I do get a stern talking to. I immediately update my LinkedIn and I'm out of there before next Christmas. I wish I could say that I learned my lesson, But I ended up becoming the office vending machine at the new place too. But I am happy to report that I still haven't been caught during a cheeky office quickie to this day.
To this day! To this day!
I love that. There I am, bussy in the air, ketchup on my titties, barbecue sauce on my titties.
Oh, poor Mandy. She's just trying to like throw up and have a cry in peace.
She's just like, guys, do you mind?
Oh, that room must have stunk.
Wow.
See, when I first read it and I heard about the tinsel, I was like, is this going to be another A&E incident?
Yes, I thought that. I thought this is going to be a tinsel reaction.
Yeah.
No,
but oh god.
Wow.
Could you imagine though, you're like just left there, tied up, naked, while someone's throwing up and crying in front of you, and then all like the like full-time mummies come in.
God, you'd be horrified, wouldn't you?
I'd be fucking mortified. I'd be absolutely mortified.
Oh, so, dear Lord.
Thank you so much for sending that in. You know who you are.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to send you a text in a few moments to let you know that I've just read that out finally. Yeah, I'd love to clip all the Hookup horror things together and just create
we should do a mass
beautiful
montage.
Compilation.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's absolutely an idea. But yes, thank you for that. And thank you for listening to this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been good.
So, yes, thank you for coming back to us after the break that we've had. We will keep you updated on what comes next.
We'll get back to it. Absolutely, we will. I'm excited for the new year. I'm excited for us to do a few more like different things with the podcast. So it should be fun.
So yeah, until next time, remember that closets were not made for people. They were made for monsters and babysitter killers.
Goodbye.
Bye. Oh god, I'm so slow.
Nailed it.
Podcast on the Super Freak Media Podcast Network. To show your support, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And you can find us on social media in the links in the description of this episode. Thank you for listening.